Well, here's something I never thought I'd do a review of. I don't think I need to talk long about how much impact I Love Lucy had on the world of television. From being one of the first shows to be pre-recorded to one of the first done in front of a studio audience, the show broke a lot of ground in establishing what would become the modern-day sitcom. Lucy was the absolute queen of situation comedy, and everyone else has had to look up to her since. So yeah, doing a snarky internet review of something from this series, kind of risking the wrath of the TV gods here. But one Patreon request wants me to look at this episode in particular, not because they necessarily think it's bad, but to see how I feel it still holds up today. And that's a fair request to make. What might have worked 60 years ago may not have the same impact today as social norms have changed. Hell, 70% of what aired on sitcoms in the 60s wouldn't get past the network brass today. In this case, the episode is tackling the subject about whether men and women should be treated equally. And this show had a number of these episodes, as this was a pretty hot button issue back in the 50s. Probably the most famous example would be the Trading Jobs episode, which gave us the iconic scene of Lucy and Ethel in the chocolate factory. But for now, let's look at the I Love Lucy episode, Equal Rights. The episode opens with Fred and Ethel laughing about some time when they were almost victims of a property scam because they're good-natured like that. They'd probably laugh about how they lost all their money in a pyramid scheme, wouldn't they? Then we see they're waiting on Lucy before they can leave for dinner because she's waiting to dry her nails. You'd think they'd dry quicker outside, but then again, I wouldn't know anything about nail painting. Yeah, I've probably already proved this episode's still topical, haven't I? We then get a whole thing where Lucy can't decide where they should go to eat, along with her constantly claiming Ricky's getting his facts wrong on this big story he's telling. And then Ricky blows his top and takes charge, telling Lucy she's gonna do what he says. And Lucy just lies back and takes it. For about 30 seconds.
Oh, yeah? I don't know how you treat your women in Cuba, but this is the United States and I have my rights.
Yep, someone's sleeping on the couch tonight. This, of course, leads to Ricky and Fred taking them up on their dare for equal rights, which simply means to them that they no longer show them courtesy and instead are uncouth jerks to them because that's how guys act toward each other. Wow, suddenly you two have made Al Bundy seem mature. And yeah, this includes them actually shaving at the restaurant table because the ladies work on their makeup there. This causes me to ask two questions. First, what was the 1950s term for trolling? And second, where in the world is Ricky plugging that shaver into? So then Ricky pulls this trick where he gets the waiter to split the check and make Lucy and Ethel pay for their own meals, and when the ladies end up not having any money, this leads to them having to wash dishes. All the dishes by themselves because apparently this restaurant doesn't have a help staff. Is this how all restaurants took care of their chores back then? Man, the blue laws of the 50s really were tough. And does this mean the dishes were just left to collect mold if the restaurants had no deadbeats one day? So as this scene gives me flashbacks to too many nights working closing shift at Domino's, Lucy starts worrying about getting jumped and killed by muggers on their way home, and this leads to her getting another harebrained scheme.
Well, I'll call Ricky, and I'll tell him that the restaurant's being held up. And you yell help and make noises like struggling in the background.
You know, that's still not as crazy as when she plotted to steal John Wayne's footprints from outside Groman's. They make the call and put on an admittedly better acting job than the guy who plays the wrestling mark, and this leads to Ricky and Fred naturally calling the police before heading back to the restaurant, where Lucy and Ethel are just washing the dishes again. Ladies, did you not have a second part of this plan where you would catch them looking like fools or something? Someone didn't think this thing through. This, of course, leads to Ricky coming up with his own plan to counter Lucy's trick. You know, if everyone was getting all these cockamamie schemes to trick their significant others back in the 50s, maybe TV and internet killing our imaginations isn't a completely terrible thing. So, how many dishes will they have to wash to pay for the dishes they broke? Of course, Ricky and Fred just have a huge laugh at making their wives think they were about to die, meaning both of them can get used to those couches for quite a few days now. But they forgot the little detail of how they called the police.
All right, you guys, let's go.
Now, wait a minute, fellas. What's the matter with you guys? Are you crazy or something? This is all a joke.
A joke?
Sure, it's a joke. It's our wives here.
Oh, that's right. Our sweet, loving little wives.
Sure. Well, you see, they out there that look, they wanted equal rights. So we said, fine, we give you equal rights. From now on, we treat you today just like you were men. So we came down here to this restaurant. We said, give us separate checks to the head waiter. You know, I tell him the whole story. So the head waiters come and gives a separate check. They don't have any money to pay. I was in cahoots with the guy, so he tells them, all right, you have to wash the dishes. To teach him a story, we let him go here and wash the dishes. Now they call the house, and just to scare us, they tell us there's a couple of bandits down here with the guns, and they're holding us up. So he and I, we come down here like a couple of jerks to save them, and we realize there's no bandits at all in here. So we says, okay, we can't lose this chance. We put the handkerchief, the hat, and the stuff. We come in here with a gun, and, you know, just to scare them, and that's all there was to it, for goodness sakes.
Yeah, another one of these cases? And why do they always seem to involve a redhead?
We never saw him before in our lives.
You know, I'm not seeing a lot of love in this I Love Lucy episode. So the ladies let their husbands stew in jail for a night, they kiss and make up afterward, and I'm left wondering who the 50s equivalent of Nash Bozard would be, because he would totally ridicule a story like this. So, does this episode hold up today? Well, it kind of does, but not for the reasons you might think. I don't think it works as an equal rights episode even at the time it came out, because the story really only uses the argument about equal rights as an excuse to show both sides trying to one-up each other in some battle of wits between two unarmed opponents. However, after years of the internet showing me all the absolute stupid situations and arguments people will get themselves into, yeah, I could totally see a scenario like this working today. And you know, maybe this was an equality story after all. It showed that the husbands and wives are both equal at being complete dumbasses. The ball's in your court, Homer and Marge.